want you to tell me about the day I was born.
We were very concerned not to have a pregnancy while I was in law school because we weren't prepared. Once we came toward the end of law school, we determined to get pregnant, and by the time we were on the way, we had finished in Missoula and moved to Glasgow. We lived in a rather old-time apartment. Well, actually it was a separate house with an apartment house right in front of it that we talked Mrs. Reese into renting to us. She was kind of a difficult lady who had half a dozen rentals in Glasgow, and we were lucky to find one anywhere. And we were pleased with the local doctors, and Marie went back and forth to Dr. Smith and Dr. Little. I think Dr. Little was there. I'm not too sure who officiated your birth.
A.N. Smith.
A.N. did, the old man.
Yeah.
A.N. was very partial to me. He and I had a bond because when I was being born, I was pointed the wrong direction. And Dr. Hoyt, who was our old-time country doctor and lived next door to us, and kind of a pompous ass, was determined that they ought to just cut me up because I wasn't going to get born. And Dad was not determined that way. Dad rushed to Nelson Reservoir, where A.N. and others were engaged in a fishing trip, got A.N. to come back to town. A.N. turned me around and I was born. And I had a difficulty with my teeth and my jaw because I didn't come out right, but I came out alive. So he always took credit for keeping me alive, which he was entitled to. So when it was time for your birth, you fiddled around as usual and didn't come on time and waited till the middle of the night. And I think maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm not just sure. But we were 6 blocks from the hospital. 42 below, we had a Nash automobile that we bought in Missoula, a new modern fancy car. And in those days we had double batteries that we had to put in the cars in Glasgow. My friend Willie Walden, who was a blacksmith, had welded an extra rack and an extra battery under the engine, under the hood, so we could have power to start the car. They didn't have head bolt heaters yet. And so, since the car had double batteries, we could start the car when it was 42 below. But the wheels were kind of square because in those days, if you parked your car all night out in the cold, you got a frozen tire, and the tire got flat where it was parked. So as you drove away, the car would clunk, 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 clunk. So we clunk, clunk, clunked you down the road to the hospital and got you down there, and I don't remember how long the birth took. It wasn't well, it was my first experience, but it doesn't seem like it was real long. But once we got to the hospital, of course, it was no big event. You just had a birth, and you amazed me because you had hair. I didn't know babies had hair. And you had a fair amount of dark hair. Must have had an inch across the top of your head. I never heard of such a thing. Of course, I'd never seen a little baby before either. So
Yeah. Okay.